Our first prediction is that another nation state is going to embrace Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset in 2025, with all this talk about Bitcoin in the presidential elections in the US. And even before the year ends, we find politicians in Brazil, Canada, and even Poland talking about holding Bitcoin as a strategic reserve asset to help their economies. This is really not a far-fetched prediction. And maybe it's not even one nation state, maybe there will be five. Let's see how the dynamics shifted over the past year. In this chart, Bitcoin has demonstrated a great growth potential, sidetracked by a high volatility is in comparison to gold. For example, if you can see here, the Bitcoin is the orange line, gold is the yellow line. We can see that it demonstrated a really great growth potential for holding Bitcoin as opposed to holding gold, even though gold is still the traditional hedge against currency debasement and inflation. However, that dynamic shifted. And there was some macro factors and geopolitical tensions that caused some short-term drawback. However, we've also seen that these drawbacks coincide with accumulation from long-term Bitcoin holders. Long-term Bitcoin holders are Bitcoin holders that have idle Bitcoin in their wallets for at least 155 days, so unmoved Bitcoin. So these guys have been accumulating, especially in market turbulences, and that we can see that clear shift in dynamic in August, in the beginning of August, when we saw that the Japanese central bank basically hiked interest rates, shocking markets. However, living in another world, long-term Bitcoin holders found it a trigger to buy more. So that essentially demonstrates the growth in institutional adoption and a shift in how holders or investors think about Bitcoin as a store of value and even as a reserve asset for institutions and nations alike. That is a great trend and that we think will continue in 2025 as it demonstrates institutional interest, basically, coinciding with ETFs that launched earlier this year and with also a favorable regulatory environment, especially in the US in 2025. When we compare it to gold, maybe if you guys are new here, we tend to often compare Bitcoin to gold due to the commonality in terms of the nature and scarcity. However, what Bit has so many factors that differentiate or make it a much more convenient investment other than gold. One being a tradable 24/7, having a decentralized monetary system with a hard-coded monetary supply cap, with a predictable monetary system, with the difficulty or mining difficulty increasing, making the outcome of this long-term scarcity predictable. We can see clearly here how the market dynamic is shifting. We can see that gold is still at an all-time, yes, it is trading at an all-time high, just like Bitcoin. Moderately, of course, the volatility cannot compare. However, we can see that there is a trend line, a very clear trend line here. In terms of nation state, as I said, we are already seeing so many countries already discussing it. And we have our eyes on some nation states that we are not going to disclose here. But the future is very promising for this asset. We've seen El Salvador, of course, pioneering on that front. Everyone called them crazy. But then we've seen Bhutan also quietly mining Bitcoin, a very tiny, very wealthy country or nation state, already accruing revenue on that front. We've seen other states as well take U-turn stances in favor of Bitcoin mining just to basically solidify their economic strategies, hedging against their currency debasement in light of the many geopolitical conflicts happening around the world, with, for example, South Korea, with the martial law. I think Argentina, namely, will follow suit with the new leadership. And last year is discussing with the El Salvador president, consulting with how they can utilize Bitcoin as a store of value and also as a strategic reserve asset for their country. As you guys know, Argentina has been infamously stuck in a rut with their inflation and currency debasement. Bitcoin comes in very handy for countries like that.